What do you think needs to be done from the government side or the police side to change things, to make it faster, to make the residents feel safe?
Absolutely. From the government side, it is our humble request that it is not just for one community this issue is. This is an issue for every Canadian.
You're clearly engaging with the community. You're on the ground level, and the head of the task force had called that this was not a crisis. Do you see this crisis as a crisis?
Yeah, absolutely. The multiple shootings, it's almost one every second day for extortions, and we're not even through the month of January. So we really need to address the problem of firearms being used in the community, make sure the police have the technology, that Crown prosecutors and police have the laws in place to do the job that they need to do to stop the crisis.
Do you have hope that Surrey's going to get better?
Absolutely, I do.
Hi, this is Manraj. You're watching Prime Asia TV, and currently I'm in the Bear Creek neighborhood at King George and 88 Avenue. I'm at a rally against extortion. Sometimes it's very easy to just classify it as a Punjabi problem, but it really is a Canadian problem. Hence, we're going to be covering it both in English and Punjabi. Let's go ask what people's views are on this crisis. What do you think needs to be done from the government side or the police side to change things, to make it faster, to make the residents feel safe?
Absolutely. From the government side, it is our humble request that it is not just for one community this issue is. This is an issue for every Canadian. We are Canadian. We pay our taxes. We work really hard. Our community especially works very, very hard. And on all the government levels, our humble request is that first of all, at the federal level, they really need to look at that who are these wrongdoers, the ones who are actually firing the bullets. So these are the people, probably they have some sort of a status lapse in Canada, so they should really start looking into people who have their status into question right now, so that because these are the people who have lost a faith in a future in Canada. So if you have lost a faith in a future in Canada, then you become a little bit more desperate. And we understand that, anybody can be in any situation in life, but something needs to be done. At the federal government, they should start looking into this. It's on an urgent basis, not to make this even a bigger issue and then start on it. And on the provincial level, a lot more dedication of money, as well as our premier. I don't see him here. I haven't seen him anywhere close to our community making statements as to how serious this is and how he's going to tackle it. So he needs to get this thing act very, very together. Nikki Sharma, who's our Attorney General, should not be just sitting. She should be 100% every minute working on this and tackling this. And further, on the city level, it is not sufficient for our mayor or our councillors at the city level to just simply state that this is a Surrey problem. Oh, Surrey is Surrey. Or there is a certain perception towards Indo-Canadian community. It is absolutely ridiculous. If anything, Indo-Canadian community is the most hardworking community. We are the backbone. And if you look at Surrey, we have put it on the map. We are becoming one of the biggest cities in British Columbia, and that is an achievement. Why? Because of the hard work of this community. And if this community is not going to be given the very basic necessities of safety and protection, then something is wrong. Something is very, very wrong. And if a chief can stand up and say of our CMP that this is not a crisis, then that person should be ashamed of himself. I am ashamed of him. I'm ashamed of the fact that he is a chief of our CMP, because honestly speaking, I am so sorry. When one family gets that call, living that fear, that means that chief has never lived in fear. That means that person has no idea what is this crisis. This crisis is huge, and it should have been a crisis on the first call, not after. I think in this month alone, there has been more incidents than the number of days. Are you kidding me? And this is not a crisis?
There's not a lack of representation on the government level from Indo-Canadians. So the fact that this problem is not being considered a Canadian problem is very surprising. They're saying that it's happening from Indo-Canadians to Indo-Canadians, this extortion. It's the victimizers are Indo-Canadian, the victims are Indo-Canadians. So how can we consider this a Canadian problem?
Now, some sort of a crime is easily doable towards a certain community. Does not mean that we are not Canadians. Does not mean this is not a Canadian problem. It's just those people found a loophole in the system, a Canadian system, and they exploited it towards one community. This shows that this is a Canadian problem, because it's not going to just end at one community. If they're thinking that this is going to end at just Indo-Canadian community, no, They're setting an example as to how weak Canadian system is. It's a huge Canadian problem. And you're right, our representation, if whatever our Indo-Canadian representation is, but I am, to be honest with you, I'm thankful to see that a lot of the MPs are trying in the opposition. But the problem is the ones who are in power, the ones who can actually make a difference, they're the ones not doing much, because they can easily make laws. They can do things which can rectify this issue. They must do things that can rectify this issue. And our representation in those areas, unfortunately, they also kind of make it look like they have to have a gathering or a protest for some reason, when they can easily write to the one that they're a leader and make changes which can help resolve this issue. And now changes. Federal, I've already spoke about it, municipal and provincial. If they all get together, this crisis will be gone within a day. But the problem is, as you said, our representation, willingness of the people in power to actually make a difference and actually treat it as a Canadian problem. And I'm hopeful that the more we get together, because if it is our community problem, then they should see it. I think the world should see it, and Canadians should feel ashamed that if they will treat it as not a Canadian problem, then these people have no other resources or resort than to be on the side of the street in Canada in -2 on Sunday.
I've talked to a lot of people today, and I think that there's so many ways that we're just like, oh, the government should do this, the government should do this, but what can the government realistically do right now to make the residents feel safe?
Well, I think to make people feel safe, we definitely need to see results. We also need to see a more overt police presence, especially in Surrey. We were promised by the NDP back in the fall and into the winter of 2025 that we would have a surge of officers coming into the city. I think they need to follow through on that. Some of the other things that I think will actually help us make headway on these extortion cases is that we actually need to have provincial firearms strategy. So we need to make sure that, the government really is addressing the problem of crime guns in British Columbia. We've had so far more than 35, I think we're almost close to 40 extortion calls right now, multiple shootings. It's almost one every second day for extortions, and we're not even through the month of January. So we really need to address the problem of firearms being used in the community. We know that people have lost faith in our police because they're paying extortionists. They've lost faith in the system. They're taking the law into their own hands, which we don't want that to happen. So, as legislators also, I think we need to appoint a commissioner at the federal level who can remove barriers, who can look at the ministries that are responsible for dealing with this issue. We have police, that falls under the public safety ministry. We have some immigration concerns and issues that people can see. We also, are talking about the Criminal Code of Canada and our justice system and Crown prosecutors. Do they have the right laws and tools in place? Have we kept pace with the modern criminal landscape? Do we have everything that we need? If we had someone who was looking at that 20,000 foot level at this problem, analyzing very quickly where we need to pivot and make changes and removing those barriers for both police, immigration, law enforcement, as well as the Crown prosecutor, so that we can get charges laid, we can get people through the court system, and then regardless of that outcome, if we have someone who is no longer eligible to be in Canada, we need to make sure that they're removed right away.
You're clearly engaging with the community. You're on the ground level, and the head of the task force had called that this was not a crisis. Do you see this crisis as a crisis?
Yeah, absolutely. My constituency has had multiple shootings. Our city is multiple shootings. Like I said, we have people who are paying extortionists because they would rather pay thousands and thousands of dollars than trust our system with their safety. We have failed when that happens. We have allegedly, in one instance, someone has fired back firearms. They're under investigation. This points to, vigilantism, something that creates even more instability in community. I honestly couldn't be more deeply concerned at this time for the safety of my constituents. That being said, I do believe that there are solutions to this problem. And I think that at multiple layers of government, we need to remove the barriers as quickly as possible. We need to make sure the police have the technology, that Crown prosecutors and police have the laws in place to do the job that they need to do to stop the crisis.
I've been living in Surrey for so long, and in high school we used to say Surrey, Surrey. Like there was the gang wars that was happening, drugs. Like a lot of my friends, like young Indo-Canadians, were being involved in things like this, and it just seems to keep getting worse. Now with like the extortion crisis, do you have hope that Surrey's going to get better?
Absolutely, I do. And you know what? When you're talking about looking sort of retrospectively and looking at some of the challenges we had with the gang wars of 2015 and in that area, like a decade ago, things were very, very out of control at that time. We also, once this region used to be the auto theft capital of Canada, we have shown tremendous resiliency. We've also shown that when we put our minds to it, we actually can reduce crime levels. Surrey itself, actually, over the last decade, brought crime down. Crime has been falling in Surrey, notwithstanding this crisis that we're in with these shootings, with the fires, with the extortion threats, with the homicides, with the gang activity that we've seen. This is a community that has great heart. I'm proud to say that I'm from Surrey because you know what? Our city has gone through tough times, but we've always persevered, and we're going to do it again.
Thank you so much. I think sometimes we forget that this affects more than just the Punjabis. This is impacting outside of the Indo-Canadian community as well. And sometimes that message doesn't go across because it's only being covered in Punjabi media. So now we're going to be covering this in English as well, just to let everybody know that this is a Canadian issue, not an Indo-Canadian issue. Hi, thank you so much for joining me. You're quite young. How did you get involved with this cause?
Actually my dad, right? He was like telling me all about this. And at school, we also like talk about this topic and stuff. Our teachers show videos of like protests like this happening. I wanted to like get involved in this as well. I asked my dad to like bring me here and stuff. And he did. He showed me some places. So yeah, at schools, it's like some students, like we actually talk about how like there's shooting happening in like very close places, like for absolutely no reason sometimes.
And there's a common saying that's become Surrey is Surrey. This is just going to keep happening. As a kid in school yourself, do you feel like the younger generation just sees this city as unsafe and that it's never going to change?
Yes, actually. So basically our parents like came here for like us to have a bright future, right? So that's why I'm like born in Canada. And I go to like a good school to like be like successful, but like now, like after looking at this, they're literally like just shooting like if you're poor, then you're like on the streets, there's like no point you can live. And if you're like rich, there's also no point to live because someone's literally gonna kill you by like shooting at your house and stuff.
Yeah. And this is something that you guys are talking about in school, or do you just take it as a normal part of your life now?
Honestly, we're talking about this at school as well, and it's literally just like a normal part. There's like a different house like every single day, which is like getting shot on, and there's like different places as well.
Do you feel unsafe living in the city when you hear news like this? Do you feel unsafe?
Yes, I actually do. It's like scary when you just like feel like when you like think of sleeping at night, you literally just like have to pray before sleeping because like you never know what's gonna happen like the next morning.
Yeah. And has this impacted anybody around you in your personal circles? Because I think sometimes we're so distanced from the issue. We see it as happening in news. We see it as happening in newspapers. Is this something that you actually feel the impact of living in the city?
Actually, yes, because like there are like some near places just got shot up and like you never know how you can be next and stuff. And like I think one of my relatives also their house like got shot up and stuff.
Yeah. People are saying that this is just a business issue. This is only happening to business owners. The normal residents of Surrey don't need to worry. But you're here. If this was something that didn't impact you, why would you be here? So what was the message that you want to send to the government or to the MPs as a kid, literally as a kid, you're showing up to extortion, something that you shouldn't even be exposed to at all?
Okay, so like the government actually needs to like do something about this, right? And then this is actually like so scary, not just for like adults and stuff, right? It's like for children as well, because like the schools are actually teaching us this. I'm actually happy they did, because we're actually getting to like understand what's going on around us, and we're just not like this. So like the government actually needs to do something, because if it was only the people whose like houses got shot up and stuff, they'd be like scared and stuff. Anyone can show up. But like as a community, we need to like be here together to like for like the government to actually understand how like what's happening and stuff, that like children are also like so scared. They actually need to do something about this.
Thank you so much. I think sometimes this issue can look like it's only a Punjabi issue. It's something that's not impacting the rest of Canadians. But there are young adults that are showing up here. We want to cover this in English as well, just to make sure that we're letting people know that this is a Canadian issue, not a Punjabi issue. You live in Surrey, and you know, sometimes it's said that, oh, this is only impacting businesses. This is not impacting the normal residents of Surrey. What do you have to say to that?
I have to say it's untrue. Like, as a Canadian citizen, even though like my family and also a South Asian member of my community, people often say, oh, it only affects South Asian businesses. It only affects your type of community. But I'm technically a part of two communities, and I think it impacts everyone as a whole.
Yeah. Do you feel unsafe living here?
Yeah, it's like not great, because you look at me and the first thing you look at me, you see Indian. You don't see a Canadian citizen. You don't think maybe, oh, like she looks Canadian, we'll give her a pass. No, you think like she has brown skin.
Do you think if this was impacting anybody else except the Indo-Canadian community, do you think that the government would have maybe reacted faster?
I feel like if this was affecting definitely like white Canadians, definitely they would have acted upon it faster, as the Canadian government is majorly like white Canadians. And since like Indo-Canadians and Asians in our community are like, oh, how do I put this? They're not that well represented in government.
Yeah. Surrey is Surrey, you know? It's often said, even in high school, I remember the saying just floating around when there were a lot of like gang wars that were happening, a lot of shootings, a lot of drugs were being passed around to with young Indo-Canadians. They constantly just keep saying Surrey, Surrey. Do you, as a young Canadian living in Surrey, do you feel as if it's never going to change, as if there's no hope for the city?
There is definitely hope for this city, but with the laws right now and the fact that like we are currently feeding into these stereotypes that Surrey is filled with a bunch of like gangy Indian kids. It's not great. We're just like feeding into this stereotype when we should be combating against it.
And how can that happen? How can the government protect us more? How can the police protect us more? What needs to happen for a normal resident living in Surrey to feel safer?
Well, first of all, we should increase the punishments for these laws. Right now, people are running free or just getting deported after all these crimes are being done, which isn't fair. Like, honestly.
I think a lot of coverage has been around the fact that maybe if this hadn't been an Indo-Canadian issue, maybe this would have been solved faster. You're not Indo-Canadian. You're out here joining this cause. How is this impacting you as well?
Because something happened in your community, that will be soon coming to our community. That's why we need to stand together.
Living in Surrey, do you feel safe?
I don't think so. It used to be safe, but not safe anymore right now.
Yeah. What do you think the government can do to make the normal residents living in Surrey feel safer?
It's kind of, I should say, it's a kind of a government responsibility, because they are the government we elected. They should do something according to our concern, but so far it doesn't. So that's why we need to fight. We need to stand together to push and give some of, forcing them to listen our concern, to do something substantially.
Why is something like hosting a rally so important to this cause?
Because we had a kind of successful story already. You know that in November last year, we did a successful demonstration at City Hall, regarding to they was, to construct a kind of so-called house, drug housing, mixed with other, vulnerable people together. So we had a successful demonstration to force the city council just to vote 9-0 to send the product back to the BC housing. So we need to be, united, and when we become stronger. That's the way.
So this puts the pressure on the government to act.
Yeah, sure. That's the way. We have two ways to do work. Let them to work for us. One, to vote. One, to have a kind of demonstration. Giving the pressure to them. They have to listen to our public concerns.
Yeah. I like that you're carrying that Canadian flag. I think it's symbolic of the fact that this isn't just an Indo-Canadian issue. This is a Canadian issue.
Yes, yes. No matter where we come from, we all Canadian here. We care about where the country and the BC goes.
As we saw, extortion impacts everybody. It is a Canadian problem. It is something that needs to be resolved as fast so that residents in Surrey can feel safe. That was all for our program today. Keep watching Prime Asia TV.